Hey everyone, it's Mason and you're listening to HerbRally. Today's episode is yet another edition of the Herbalist Hour, and in this time I'm joined by Jodi McKee. Jodi is the owner of a wonderful herb shop just outside of Minneapolis, Minnesota called Jewelweed. And in this episode we learn about Jodi's herbal origins, founding Jewelweed, her mentors, and a whole lot more. Also, during the episode we actually go on an herb shop tour, but we cut that part out for the audio segment. But what I'll do for you is in the podcast description, I will link to the solo herb shop tour. So if you want to check out around a 30-minute herb shop tour of the wonderful store Jewelweed, definitely click on that link. It'll take you right there to the YouTube video so you can check out the entire store, learn about their lines, their vendors, and all of the other amazing things that they sell. And during that tour, we're actually joined by store manager Berit along with Jodi McKee. So it is a lot of fun, getting a lot of positive feedback on YouTube so far. I think you'll really dig it. So a huge thank you to Jodi and Berit for taking the time with us, and thanks to y'all for listening. Before we get into the show, just a quick request. If you don't mind, if you've been enjoying HerbRally, if you've been enjoying the podcast, do you mind taking a moment to leave us some sort of written review in your podcast player of choice, along with a star ranking? It really helps recommend the show to more people so you can help HerbRally in that way. So one more time, if you've been enjoying the show, pretty please leave us some sort of written review along with a star ranking, and it would make me super duper happy, so I really appreciate it. Also, before we get into the show, big shout out and thank you to our HerbRally Schoolhouse members. Thank you so much for your support. You know who you are. If you'd like to learn more about the HerbRally Schoolhouse, simply go to herbrally.com/schoolhouse. And don't forget to use coupon code podcast at checkout to get your first 30 days for free. And one of the fun perks about being an HerbRally Schoolhouse member is, well, this interview today was done in person in Minnesota, but when we do them on Zoom, our HerbRally Schoolhouse members are actually able to join us live, and you can interact with the guest, ask questions and whatnot. So that's a pretty fun perk. One more time, herbrally.com/schoolhouse, coupon code podcast to get your first 30 days for free. And thank you once again to all of our members. I think that'll do it for me today. Hope you enjoyed today's episode with Jodi McKee and Berit, and definitely give that herb shop tour video by clicking the link in today's podcast show notes. All right, I will talk to you very, very soon. Bye.
Welcome to the Herbalist Hour. This is where community gather, merging the power of people and the flowers, the sweet and the bitter to the salty, the sour. Umami, it's time for the Herbalist Hour.
Welcome back to the Herbalist Hour. Today I'm really excited to have on Jodi McKee. Welcome to the show, Jodi.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Mason.
Of course. Really excited to get to know you and your journey and your store a bit more. By the way, we're here at a beautiful store called Jewelweed, which Jodi founded here in Wayzata, Minnesota. Can you tell us more about the location, where we're at, what that beautiful lake across the street is?
Yeah, so across the street is Lake Minnetonka. You may have heard of it. Prince refers to it in the Purple Rain movie.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty famous. Yeah. So it's a big a big destination in Minneapolis. We're west of Minneapolis, and so I know it's a beautiful lake. It has a lot of lakeshore. It has a lot of houses around it. There's a couple little towns around it, and so this is Wayzata. And when I was considering opening a shop, I looked at lots of kind of different places, and when I found something here on Lake Street, it just felt right. Like I had already the name Jewelweed had been brewing in my head, and Jewelweed grows across the street on the lakeshore, and so it felt like this was an appropriate place.
It's a vibrant community too. I mean, people everywhere. It's it's such a lovely part of town, and I never really knew about Jewelweed the plant until I came out to the Midwest. I'm sure it grows in Oregon, which is where I'm from, but seeing it for the first time at High Cliff State Park, just outside of Appleton, Wisconsin, I'm blown away. Can you tell us how Jewelweed the plant gets its name?
Yeah, well, so I'll tell you a little bit of story of about Jewelweed for me and why it came to be. So there's several different meanings, like jewel, and we sell a lot of crystals, and weed. And I know when you put it in the water, or the dew in the morning looks like a jewel sitting on the leaf, and so it's really beautiful that way. But for me, Jewelweed has a kind of a special meaning. So I had some problems with my kidneys, and I was pregnant with my third son, and they had put me on, here comes the train. They had put me on bed rest, so they had put me on high risk, and my kidney numbers were off, and I was having blood in my urine. And my herbal teacher, Lise Wolf, put me on just 1 drop of Jewelweed in the morning and 1 drop at night. And my kidney numbers leveled out, and they took me off high risk. And actually my kidney numbers have stayed consistent. My son's 18, my youngest son is 18. And so he's a Jewelweed baby. Wow. So we joke about that because he works in the shop too. So he is nice. Like, he's like 6'4", he carries all my
Berit's
crystals.
His boss.
Yeah, Berit's his boss, yep. But yeah, so Jewelweed has just always been, a special plant for me. It's just coming up right now outside. It's just tiny, and I eat the little tiny, like, just 2 leaves when it comes up like that. And you don't use it too often in tincture form, but I think when you do, it was just really powerful. So yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
I want to say I heard you say you sell jewels and weeds.
Well, no.
Okay.
Sorry. well, weeds, because like, you know, right. Like plantain, sap, like that kind of weed. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Weeds. Respect. Yeah. Lots of weeds. Weeds are my favorite, and not the kind that you're thinking.
All right.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yes.
Very good. Well, I would love to hear about your origin story. Now, I read your bio on your website, which, by the way, dear listeners, definitely go check it out because it's a beautiful story. It's very inspiring. And I was just hoping you could kind of give the audience a little bit of that story.
Yeah. So my what started me on my herbal path is, so again, like I have 3 boys. My oldest son is 27, and so when he was born, he was sick from almost like right away. So he was sick with colds and flus and coughs, and I basically for 5 years. We were in the medical system. We were taking him to specialists. We did everything that we were supposed to do, that they told us to do, but he ended up being on medications, steroids for asthma and allergies. And so he was just sick literally all the time. And there was like I tell in my story, we brought him to the Mayo Clinic, and I was thinking, oh, the Mayo Clinic is going to help us. Like, I need help. I had just had another baby, and I was really overwhelmed with him always being sick. We had, 911 calls. He stayed in the emergency. I mean, we were in the emergency room a lot. We would, he's had extended hospital stays, and it was just really scary to raise a kid like that. And so we go to the Mayo Clinic, and I had him tested for allergies and asthma, and they sprayed a bunch of stuff in his lungs. And I don't know, when we drove away, he was really sick. So he was coughing. He was sicker than when we got there. He had like a whole rash of stuff from the allergy testing. And so it was just really, it was that moment when I was driving away that I realized that I actually needed to figure out what to do with my child that was sick all the time, and that it was my responsibility, like as a mother, to figure this out, and that I didn't really get much help. And one of the biggest things is, like, at the Mayo Clinic, they had tested him for, so if my son would have a piece of pizza, we would end up in the emergency room that night, no matter what. And so it was like, wow. I knew that, but then they tested him and said, no, he's not allergic to dairy, he's not allergic to gluten. But that didn't make any sense to me because I could see what was happening with him. And so I just got really serious about, I read all the books. There was not really an internet. I didn't even have a computer, I don't think, back then. So I went to the library, I got all the books I could on natural health, on healthy homes, on what vitamins and minerals that kids might be short of. And I just did everything that I could that way. I changed his diet. We went off dairy and gluten, and I mean, that was like 22 years ago. Nobody was doing that then. And then I met my herbal teacher. This is actually how I met her. I signed up. I had seen a flyer somewhere, and I showed up for a class. And I'm from like the suburbs. I didn't know anything about herbal medicine. I'd never heard of anybody doing herbal medicine. I actually thought people that were like, they might be a little crazy. So I got a flyer. I showed up to a class. I was kind of like checking her out, like, is she for real? And then I went to see her, to talk to her, and she ended up giving Alec bone set. And so again, she uses drop doses, kind of in the Matthew Wood vein. And so I think he did like a drop in the morning and a drop at night. And again, what happened is, actually, he got a cold, and it was the first cold he had ever had in his entire life where he didn't wheeze, and he coughed up a ton of mucus. And he literally never had asthma again. And so, and then, you know, with diet changes and all that, we kind of figured out what his constitution was, what he could eat and what he couldn't eat. But now he's 27, he eats everything. He's really aware of his body, knows what foods, you know what I mean? Like he's just in tune with what's happening in his body. But yeah, it was a long journey, and it did get me here. And you know, my whole life is based on
it's changed
herbs.
Completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And I have 3 boys, and they were all raised on herbal medicine and natural healers. And I would be the one taking my kids to who knows where for who knows. Like all my friends are always like, "What is she doing? Where are you going?" You know. But my kids are healthy, and they love the plants, and they know herbal medicine, and they were raised like this is normal to them. So.
Did the second kid have anything wrong with him that you needed help out with?
We all have really good like kind of herbal stories. He had strep a lot, and so we, you know, by the time I wasn't as good with him, I didn't know as much. But you know, when they have strep 6 times in a year, they're going to take out his tonsils, and I have to figure it out because I'm not going to let his tonsils be taken out. And usnea is what we use for that, and that. He had it once again in high school that got really bad, but that usnea is kind of what helped us with that. So yeah, we all have like surgeries avoided, like my husband has. So I want to just talk a little bit. So my husband he's an accountant, he's a CPA. So when my kids were little,
tax season just finished.
Yeah,
as we're
right.
Recording this.
Yeah. Well, when you'd go to the
Stressful.
doctor, it would be expensive. So he'd be like, "Can't you just fix it? Can't you just, you know, figure out what to treat the kids with so we don't have to spend the money on that?" So I always say, people ask, "What does your husband think?" And I'm like, he's all for it because it's cheaper than the doctor. And it works actually, like effective. So yeah. So he's been a good supporter of all this.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the emphasis on trusting your body. And you've seen, like Mama Knows Best and herbs work. Like it seems like there's all these themes, and you're a very inspirational story. So I love that you kind of just took control of the matter and just made it happen, healed your family. So that's very impressive. You mentioned Lise Wolf.
Yeah.
Who have been some of your other herbal mentors? If you have any other ones you'd like to shout out.
So Lise is always like, I give her credit because that was like she is like the one person, like if there was a left turn in my life, like Lise was it. And so I studied with her. I've apprenticed with her a little bit. I've taken classes from Matthew Wood.
Oh, okay.
And yeah,
is he still based in Minnesota or no?
I
Okay.
think he was in Wisconsin for a while, maybe in
gotcha.
California now. I'm not sure. I still have taken his online classes a little bit here and there, but because I practice drop doses like a lot of people in Minnesota, so that kind of like I feel like comes from him. And then Yulia Graves is another one of my teachers. Again, she's going to be here next week, and so she flies in from Germany, and she stays at my house, and she helps me and my kids, and so it's really fun to have her. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yes, yeah. And then I've taken I've studied with lots of other herbalists. Like I think I went to Belize and studied with Wayzata Arvago. I've did the Plant Lovers Journey with Rosemary Gladstar, and just there's just lots of people, and any herbal experience or teachers that I can get, I'm all for it.
The learning never ends.
Yes.
You also went to Chestnut School online?
Yes, I did that.
Which is how I originally connected with you.
Yes,
so.
yes. It's a beautiful program.
Okay, yeah, I've heard lots of amazing things, and Juliet Blankspore. I actually saw her book somewhere over here. I think it's right here,
Yep, yeah.
Shout out Juliet Blankspore.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, let me put that back. I think it'd be cool if you and Berit gave us a herb shop tour. We could check out the different sections of the store, and I'd like to learn more about what you do here at Jewelweed. So let's go on an herb shop tour.
Awesome. Let's do it.
Wow, you booked it.
Alrighty, quick break from the show to let you know that this is where the herb shop tour happens. Again, click on the link in the podcast show notes if you want to check out the 30-ish minute herb shop tour over at Jewelweed. Also, I definitely recommend, if you aren't already subscribed to us on YouTube, we come out with new videos every day, at least as of now. So if you want more great herbalism videos, be sure to subscribe to our HerbRally YouTube channel. All right, now back to the rest of the interview with Jodi. Well, thank you for the tour of the herb shop. That was awesome. I have to ask, what would you say are your intentions for Jewelweed?
Yeah, well, when I opened Jewelweed, a lot of people and a lot of my friends and a lot of the people in my community had no idea what I was talking about, or when I would be talking about all these things, or all these things I was using, or even the herbs. Nobody knew where to get them. And so, when I was learning herbal medicine, oftentimes, I don't know about you, but I'd end up in like broken down barns, like ripped up sofas, like in the most random places ever. And I would always think like, I don't know if my friends would be into this, you know, like, so Jewelweed, I wanted it to be like this beautiful invitation for people to come and explore the different modalities of healing. And herbs is where I started, and kind of like one of the biggest parts of my life. But then it just became a lot more, like I have a lot of other tools, and I just wanted to have a beautiful space that people could come into and have an experience, either with the plants or with the crystals or with a book or a deck, and in community. And so they know how to use the herbs, because when I was doing it, a lot of times I had like my herbal friends, but that was a very limited group of people. So now I have like literally my whole community. I can talk about herbs, we can do crystals, we can do all this stuff together. And so that has kind of been like the driving force behind Jewelweed.
Curious about your women's circles and your classes in general. Can you tell us what goes on at the shop?
Yeah, so we moved to this bigger spot in November, so now we have more room again. We had room when we first opened to host classes. And so we'll do circles, like we have one called the Jewelweed experience, where people come in and we pick something from every part of the store. And so like a couple weeks ago, we did it where we blended our own tea. So I had all herbs that I got from a farmer, Rhubarb Botanicals in Iowa. And so I had all of those out, and I just talked about tea blending and what that means and all the different plants and what they did. And then we all blended our own tea, and then that same night we would have a crystal, and then we would have we drank the tea that we made. We do a meditation, we'll do a kind of like some journaling. So anyway, it's meant to be an experience, because I feel like right now you can get information anywhere, right? You can go on any website and find out pretty much anything that you want to know, but it's the experience and the embodiment of like, what does this actually mean? What does it look like in practice to use herbs every day? Like, what is that? People don't know, they have no idea. And so we're just here to kind of like introduce, I always think we're a bridge, or right, we're just here to introduce to people all the different modalities and different things that they can use and work with. Tomorrow night we're doing a women's circle. We're doing it at my house because we want the fire. We're having a woman named Annie Fitzgerald. She's a singer-songwriter, kind of nationally known. And she'll come in and she'll do her sound bowls and singing, and then I have copal that I got when I was in Belize from a Mayan man, and we'll be burning that, and I'm going to give out samples to everybody so they can experience what that means to work with that plant. And then we have a flower essence that we made. The ferns are just unfurling right now, and so we made a flower essence of that, and because I feel like spring is a perfect time for all of us to unfurl and step into something that's new, and the ferns are so soft and beautiful. Anyway, so we'll be handing that out. We'll do a little fire ceremony, and just gathering like 25 women in a group. And so it's just, it's literally like my dream come true. I love it. Those are my favorite nights. Yeah.
Is it a lot of the same women coming each month or every time you do these, or is it like rotating? Do you see the community growing in this area?
Yes, definitely growing, because when I first started, again, nobody had, literally out here where I am, nobody had really heard about this or knew what we were doing. Yeah. And so people come in and they're a little scared, and then they might sign up for something, or people would come in and just look at everything for a while until they get enough guts to buy something or to step in, or they look at an herb and be like, okay, I'm going to research that and come back. And then we're like, okay, great. But I notice what happens is somebody will sign up for a class, they might come to a lot of things, and then they'll kind of step out, and then it's a whole kind of new group of people. But it tends to happen where some people will dive really deep. And I said it a little bit earlier, we took a group of people to Ireland. And so those people, there was like 21 people with Wild Routes Ireland. And those people tend to it was a year ago that we went, and so they all want to go back. They want me to have a reunion. So I haven't done that yet. Did you organize that event? Well, so
because I listed that event on HerbRally, so I heard about it.
But. Well, so I just went through. So actually, I found out found out about it through Rosemary Gladstar, because I had done that plant lovers trip to Italy. She had posted about the Ireland one that she did, and then they offered it. I think I took it by myself. I just went on that trip by myself maybe 5 years, actually the year I opened the shop in 2018. Wow. So I did that, and then I decided, well, I think I'm going to bring some friends back with me. So I brought 21 people back last year. Yeah, so it was amazing.
That's
and life-changing. Yeah, and so most of them are from Minnesota. So they're like, when are we can we go to your house? So they're signing up for a lot of our stuff right now. So it's really fun. So we love it, and they have little reunions in the shop, and it's life-changing, like an experience like that in a group, and it's amazing. So Chris and Tara do a great job. Yeah.
You seem to really emphasize intuition here and like following your heart, even the way you do like the gift baskets and stuff like that, and you train your employees. And does your son also have like the intuitive nature to him? Is he like helping people? Like, that's so cool.
Absolutely.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I find that really fascinating. Like on your website, I want to say, like, don't know what you're looking for? Our staff can help you find it, just by using your intuition. So first of all, can you talk a little bit about that? And do you kind of teach the customer to develop their own intuition in ways?
Yeah, well, we often ask, so somebody will come in and, let's just say they're stressed out and they're looking for something. And it's like, well, what is that? So I just ask, and like, well, what does that mean for you, right? Some people are like, oh, I absolutely need a crystal for that. Some people are like, I need an herb. Some people need to read something. So it's like, yeah, I'm using my intuition, but I'm also just asking people, like, what are you interested in? Because I think where we're drawn and what we're most attracted to is where we're going to find our most, like, the medicine, right? Yeah. What we need at the moment. And we have been taught not to trust ourselves.
Street is happening.
Yeah, busy. So I think society teaches us not to trust ourselves. So going back to my son, and I had to trust what his body was doing. I had to get really good at reading what was happening to him, because he was 5 and he wouldn't even tell you he wouldn't even tell you he's about to have an asthma attack and he can't breathe and I'm gonna have to call 911, right? Yeah. So like I just got really good at like watching him, and then as I watched him, I watched my other kids, and then I watch other people, and I just see what happens, and I feel like when you are in tune to your body, it allows other people to have their like experiences and their feelings, and then you validate them. That's mostly what I do. So if I asked you, if you need something, what would that look like? Where would you start? Yeah. What are you interested in? And just helping people to say, you're right. Yeah, let's look at that. Let's look at, anemone.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so what if that's what you need, right? So yeah, I do feel like that's all of our superpowers. And so we just need to go back to trusting ourselves and our bodies. And this
is going to be a weird question, but I have to ask it because we're talking about intuition and stuff. Do you have any insight on like what goosebumps mean and stuff like that? And like when you get like the tingly feeling right above your head and stuff like that, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like a lot of times when I have those experiences, I feel like, I don't know, like I'm in tune with that moment and something is ringing true. Is that making sense?
That's
just
exactly
kind of curious
what I think.
Take on that. Yeah.
I think when there's a big coincidence, the goosebumps to me is like truth, or it's something I know, but I maybe I didn't know I knew it, or I'll have goosebumps when there's like an amazing coincidence or something that I cannot believe in the world would happen, and I'll be like, I mean, this has happened to me. People come into the store, people will say something to me, I'll say something to people. So it happens a lot between people, and I think exactly that. It just means you're on the right track. You know what you know. Yeah, the universe is just giving you that, like, yep, I'd
probably say goosebumps like almost every other episode, but it's just very fascinating to me, and it happens to me all the time, and it just blows my mind. So anyways, thank you for confirming that to one degree or another. But curious, do you have any advice to those who might want to start a business like this, or open an herb shop of some sort? Yeah. I'm sure it's not all smelling roses and lavender.
Yes, it's been quite a journey. So when I opened, I thought I was making all my own remedies. I was making bath and body products, all my own simples, like my tinctures and salves and all of that. So I thought that's what I was going to do. But then when I started, trying to do the packaging and the labeling and everything to the standards that needed to be met, and talking to the Minnesota Department of Agriculture and just all of it, it was too much. And then what I was finding is there's actually like a lot of amazing people already doing it. So then I was like, okay, well, what's my role? Trying to look at like, what are my skills? What am I good at? What do I know? And then what do other people know? And so how can we like work together, even if I don't know them, right? Like, having their products. I know a lot of the people whose products we have, but we all don't need to do the same things. And so I was just looking for like, what would I knew I wanted to be working with the plants and all the stuff that I knew and be offering it and teaching it to people. And so, so the store, when I first opened, I was going to do all that. And that quickly became like, oh, that's really hard. And then, to own a small business, I work in a retail store, 5, 6, 7 days a week, whatever that looks like, right? And then, there's employees to manage, there's all the inventory, there's just a lot of stuff. And then you have all the social media, right? I mean, there's a lot that goes into that. So that quickly became like, oh, I'm not going to be doing what I thought. And so it's being really adaptable and just seeing what works instead of me banging my head against the wall or being like, but I really wanted to make my products. I do. Yeah. And I might, if I don't have Jewelweed one day, or I'm going to be an old lady in a garden, probably making a lot of products. I don't know what I'll do with them then, but right. So I can't do everything now. So it was like just deciding what I wanted to do, what worked. I think I mentioned a little bit when I first opened, I had like just a couple little things of crystals. Yeah. And it turns out that crystals, people buy a lot of crystals and they're easier. People are more comfortable buying crystals for something than they are herbs, especially people who haven't ever heard of any herbs. So I noticed that I might start with the crystals. Like Berit, my manager, she came in, I think she bought a crystal, she bought some astrology stuff. Now she knows a lot about herbs, but she didn't start there, right? Yeah. And so it's just like, so crystals for us have been, they make good money. They help us pay the bills. And some of the herbal stuff, like crystals don't expire, herbs expire, right? So there's just like a balance with some of that stuff. So I think just like, looking at what you're good at, seeing what sells, and just being willing to like, I don't know, even be wrong, right? And change course a little bit and correct and do things different and learn from your customers and work together in the community. And yeah, I think does that answer your question?
I love that, yes. Knowing your strengths is what you alluded to earlier. You're very clearly a community builder. And you were saying, I don't know if it was on camera or off camera, but you love sourcing. Like you're so good at it. You hand-picked each one of these items and you're very passionate about each brand that you bring in. So, and then, also knowing your strengths. I mean, I'm sure you can make a nice product, but at this point with this store, you're not able to do that. So you're knowing where you're at with the store, and you want to source, and you source really well. And and then like you said, course correct. If something's not going to go your way or the way you planned it, you're just going to do something else, and there's no shame in that. I love that. HerbRally's done that so many times. We have all these ideas, and some of them don't come to fruition, and you just have to go the other way, and it's great. And sometimes it leads you on paths that you weren't expecting before. So no, you answered the question very beautifully, and I'm sure there's a lot of good stuff right there. Amanda and I were like, oh, we want to open a shop someday, maybe in 10 years or something like that. But it's another one of those things where it's like on the back burner. It's like, it's probably more romantic than it actually is. There's a lot of hard work that goes into places like this, and you make it look effortless. Also, talk about your background in interior design.
Well, even before that, so I have a degree in accounting, so I was a CPA.
That's how you met your husband.
Yep. So I met my husband in college, who's a CPA. Awesome. Yep. And then I had little kids, and I was doing like some accounting work, and then for a small business that was doing interior design. Actually, I worked with my uncle, who was a general contractor for a while, so I started getting into houses. And then I started in design. I had a retail shop there. Then I had my own design studio. I love to create sacred space, right? Like that's what it was. And I was doing that, but as a designer, like a room would start at like $30,000. Like, so I couldn't impact hardly anybody, right? There's like hardly anybody who can afford that. So I was like, I'm gonna open a shop. And so everybody that comes in can spend $2 on a crystal and get something from the, like an offering. And so that's really what I wanted to do, is kind of like expand that out. But I think beauty heals. I think like, spaces that are tended and cared for and loved really show. And I imagine like all the plants and all the crystals and everything that I have, all the words go out into the world and like expand into like something greater than I ever hoped for. So I just like, that's what I imagine comes out of this place. And honestly, it is romantic to own a store. It's a lot of work at the same
Touché.
time.
Yes, well said. And it's not just the art and beauty and herbs, but then the aromas coming from everywhere, like just the vibe of the street, like it all creates this wonderful ambiance. And it's kind of leading to one of my last questions for you. I don't know if you're a Minnesota native or not, but I would love to hear you explain why you love Minnesota as a home, maybe even particularly this region. But yeah, coming from Oregon, which is beautiful in its own way, and then moving to Wisconsin, the Midwest, I have a whole new appreciation for the Midwest. I adore Wisconsin. I adore my hometown of Appleton now. And yeah, I just would love to hear you rave about, shoot, why Wayzata?
Wayzata.
Wayzata. All right.
I don't even know if I can say it now.
I ruined it that bad.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I love Minnesota. So I was born and raised in Minnesota. I actually lived in Northeast Minneapolis when I was younger, and I would pick rocks from the parking lot down the street and find agates from Lake Superior, which I think we kind of talked about Lake Superior a little bit earlier. And then I would sell them in my wagon. So my mom, when she comes in, she'll be like, "You're back to your roots selling rocks again."
That is so cool.
Yeah. So and I used to pick flowers too, and I actually would steal flowers from people's gardens, but my parents were big gardeners. So yeah, so I've been born and raised in Minnesota. I love the lake. All the lakes. I love the water. I love the people, right? The community. My husband is from the mountains, and so we go back there often. So it's very different there. So I come home and I'm
is
that
just
up north? Home. He is from Wyoming, so the state of Wyoming. The mountains. Yeah. So we go back there. One of my sons lives there now too. So it's very different. I don't know. It just, to me, people are very humble and they're hardworking and they're kind, and like this particular spot, like my kids grew up in this area, and it's very tight-knit community, and the water is really a big deal. So like, they sail, and we spend a lot of time out on the lake and swimming, and that to me, like Jewelweed is here because of that water right there, that body of water. It's really special. It's a really special place. So
now you told me off camera, or you told us off camera, that you'll show up and work on a boat sometimes.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yes, when I don't know how to drive the boat super well. We've had a couple stories of things gone bad when I try, but my 3 boys and my husband are awesome at it, and so they'll run me over and drop me off and then go back home, and those are my best days, my very best days at work.
That's the dream.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Well, this has been awesome to get to know you, hanging out with Berit, and just lovely space. So did you have any closing thoughts or things you'd like to say to the audience before we get out of here?
I just appreciate HerbRally and all your work, like both of you, Mason and Amanda. Like really, I loved it. It's like when I go through all your stuff, it's like frosting or something. Like it literally is like candy, or I don't know. I was like, this is awesome. I love everything.
So neat.
So yeah, to be a part of it, I feel really honored, and thank you for listening, and thank you for being here. And yeah, I just really appreciate it.
I'm glad we made this happen. Minnesota road trip or something like that. Herbal road trip. And thank you so much.
Thank you. All
right. Yeah. Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yay.
Bye. See you next time. And that's going to do it for today's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the HerbRally podcast. If you'd like to hear more from us here at HerbRally, we now have a text message community, believe it or not. Basically, it's just updates from us. We send about 1 to 7 texts per week, notifying you about new events, videos, courses, podcasts. You get the idea. It's pretty much like our email newsletter, just in text form. So if you'd like to receive text messages from HerbRally, just text JOIN, that's JOIN, to the number 541-256-2895. Again, that's JOIN to number 541-256-2895. And to stop receiving texts, that's easy too. Just text STOP to the same number. It'll opt you out immediately. Okay, thanks again for listening. Have a great rest of your day.